Welcome to Film Independence Los Angeles Film Festival, presented by the Los Angeles Times, and our final poolside chat of this year's festival, Hollywood, DC. Big thank you to the sponsors of this event, American Express Open and the W Los Angeles Westwood, who make this possible. W gives us this fabulous location. Big thank you to them. It gives me great pleasure to introduce this panel. We have a fantastic lineup tonight, and I'm going to let our great moderator tonight introduce this. He's the executive producer of Politically Incorrect, Real Time with Bill Maher, and the new show, Lewis Black's Root of All Evil. Please welcome our moderator for tonight, Scott Carter.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. And I think we're going to have a fascinating discussion. Introduce our four panelists. First of all, he has made hundreds of appearances on television shows, including, I think he holds a record, that at one time he had recurring roles at the same time on JAG, ER, The West Wing, and Star Trek Enterprise. But he's here tonight because twice he has played Robert Kennedy, first in Marilyn and Norma Jean for USA Television, and then for Kevin Costner's movie 13 Days. Please welcome Steve Culp, ladies and gentlemen. And equally doing into three digits number of appearances and one of my favorite actors, and I particularly love his performances on Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he's in all of the Paul Thomas Anderson movies. And in 1984, he played Richard Nixon in Robert Altman's Secret Honor. Please welcome Philip Baker Hall, ladies and gentlemen. We are delighted to have this luminous and courageous actress who, when she's not going back for adventures in Jurassic Park, is Citizen Ruth or Rambling Rose, and lately in Recount. She has given, if you haven't seen it, you have to see it, is a tour de force performance of Florida's Secretary of State, Katherine Harris, that is at once both dazzling and disturbing. Please welcome Laura Dern, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, he's one of our most talented directors and writers and producers, without whom you would not know such outrageous characters as Austin Powers, the Fockers, or Borat, or any of the other equally outrageous and all too true characters in Recount on HBO. Please welcome Jay Roach, ladies and gentlemen. The projects that we want to focus on today and talk about how you came to them and how you prepared for them. So you first played Robert Kennedy in something that was a more fantastical sort of premise for USA Today than
actually it was HBO.
Oh, for HBO.
We don't want to slide HBO
here.
Okay,
all right. We love HBO. Mm-hmm. So tell us how you first prepared, and was it daunting to be cast as Robert Kennedy?
Well, the Norma Jean and Marilyn, was very different because it was basically reality is filtered through Marilyn Monroe's eyes, and in this, Bobby Kennedy serves a certain, he's only fills a certain prism, But even at that, I was laughing at myself at the time because I did what I felt was just an inordinate amount of research, because you really feel like when you walk onto the set as this icon, you got to be it. And so I wanted to walk on the set being the guy, and so I did a lot of, I looked in books, and I watched tapes, and I listened to tapes, and I did a lot of work on it to try to be this person in this somewhat fantastical situation.
Was it interesting for you having a second chance to do it, and in kind of a more substantive role in 13 Days?
Well, that was just apples and oranges. I mean, I did about 100 times the amount of research for that movie as I did for Norma Jean and Marilyn, because I don't know how many of you have seen that. It basically concerns the 13 days of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. And the wonderful thing about the movie, I think, we all thought, was that it's actually about a bunch of people at the top level of the government who are doing everything they can not to go to war, and really fighting against the tide not to go to war. And I think that makes it a great, despite the fact that I'm in it, I think that makes it a terrific movie.
An incredible film. Philip, how much did you have strong opinions about Richard Nixon before you were asked to play him, and how did that affect your preparation?
Yeah, I did have strong negative feelings. And after I began to do some research and found out more about him, I had even more negative feelings. And then as recent events have moved even further to the right since Nixon, in somewhat the same kind of arc, even yet more negative. But Nixon was the seed that planted a lot of the stuff, I think, that we are harvesting now. So,
how did you come to terms, though, with you've got to be the guy who likes, I mean, you have to be comfortable in his skin.
Sure.
How do you come to terms with that if you dislike so much about him?
Well, I don't think it's hard for an actor to separate his personal feelings as a non-actor, as a person, from the character he's playing. I didn't really find that a difficulty. And a character like Nixon, anyway, in fact, all the characters that I think that we've played here are so full of a fiery kind of life passion, whether they're good or bad, and whatever the judgment is, that there's a lot to work on. It doesn't have to revolve around any negative or evil elements. Nixon is particularly fecund in this matter because he is a man all over the place. And, of course, that was just wonderful stuff to work with as an actor.
Did you feel at some point that perhaps you had greater insight to him than he ever had about himself?
Well, I had a chance, if I did, to parlay it into something different than what he did. But it did start as a theater piece, and then, of course, became a film. So I had a chance, a wonderful and rare chance, to explore it on stage for a long time in front of audiences before we actually did the film. And that was, I think, very productive for me as an actor, and for the people maybe who saw the film. They saw the fruit of a lot of work that led up to the making of the movie. So.
Laura, how closely did you follow the 2000 election? How strong of an impression did you have of Katherine Harris before you read this script and decided that you wanted to play her?
I certainly, I'm sure as all of us, followed it very closely. And I think it's fair to say we were all riveted by the presentation that she offered us.
Yeah.
But the question that Philip addresses, which is getting an insight into the individual, it was so surface what was presented. It was, oh my God, who is that? What is that? What's going on there?
Right.
It was just this terrifying creature that was presented with, a little too much of a mask, but we didn't really have a sense of her other than perhaps that she had a very strong-willed agenda. And so with the good graces of both Jay and our writer, Danny Strong, I kind of jumped on board with research that they'd already worked so diligently on and passed on to me, including the greatest gift of all, which was an autobiography written by her about her perspective on what she went through. And I realized that that's sort of what I need to understand and embody, not necessarily an individual empathy for her, but an understanding for her perspective on her sort of plight in this circumstance she'd been put in.